Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a quick tutorial on how to paint a Primaris Infiltrator. Now he's going to be in Lamenters colours, but obviously the yellow can be used for Imperial Fists or anyone like that. The first colour we're using is Vallejo Black, and that's going to be to do all the kind of ribbing between the armour plates. I'm just going to apologise now for the sound on this video because I do have a bit of a cold going on, so it may not be as clear as usual. As well as the armour plates, we're also going to do the casing on the Boltgun. As we're painting yellow, you just want to make sure that you are being careful around the edges of the armour. Just make sure you get as little black on there as possible, because it can be a little bit of a pain to paint over when you're just using yellow. Once done, we'll be coming back with the next colour. Next up, it's Citadel Mournfang Brown. I'm going to use this to do all the pouches. Also the belt, which runs around the back of the armour. I always try and do these like they're a little bit leathery and a bit scuffed, so we'll be going into a bit more detail on how to make them look scuffed on the corners and that a bit later on. Next up, it's a quick one. It's Citadel Mephiston Red. We're just going to be using this to do his eye lenses. Like so. Now we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo White to paint his left shoulder pad. As they're going to be Lamenters, we're going to have this painted white and then do the black check on it. So you do want to start with a nice smooth white coat here. Now as it's white and it does streak quite easily, you may want to give it a couple of coats just to make sure that's nice and smooth. Now we're going to use some Vallejo Modeler Chrome. This is a nice smooth metallic. It's very easy to apply because it's a airbrush paint, but it's got loads of pigment, so it's very smooth. Very good for painting over pretty much any colour. So we're going to paint up all his weapons and all the silver parts of this. Now if you watch any of the Black Legion vids or any of the other vids, I tend to do my Imperial troops with Vallejo Modeler Chrome for their weaponry. And I use Lead Belcher for the Chaos troops, just to make it look that little bit darker when you finish painting it. Next up, we're using a little bit of Citadel Rakarth flesh. We're going to use that just to do the skull and crossbones on his chest. So we're going to be doing this in the same colours that we do the Aquila on the normal Primaris Space Marines, the normal Astartes who are Lamenters. Like so. Now we're going to use a little bit of Citadel Fuegan Orange. I'm going to be using this to shade all the yellow areas. Now because yellow is quite a thin colour when you're repainting it on, nice outer shot there. You do want to just try and get this on all the edges and the ridges rather than splattering it everywhere, which then makes it difficult for when you're painting over it. So if you can keep it to the details rather than going over the whole thing, you'll save yourself a lot of time when you come back to painting the yellow back in shortly. With that finished, we're going to move on to Citadel Nuln Oil. We're going to use this for all of the silver metallics. Just give that a nice coating of Nuln Oil. I'll get into all the recesses and give it a nice metallic look. Next up, I'm going to use a little bit of Citadel Retributor armour. That's just to do the bullet casing on his leg there, which I missed earlier on, so you could have done this earlier. But I thought I'll do this now because we're going to be shading the pouches with the same shade as you would be for the gold, so it made sense to do it now. Now I'm going to use Citadel Agrax Earthshade. I'm going to be applying that to all of the pouches and also the gold bullet casing on this front there. Now the same can be said for the shades as well. You don't want to get too much of that on other areas, so you do want to aim to only get the shades on the bits that you're painting onto, so as little as possible on the yellow. Now I'm going to use Citadel Seraphim Sepia. I'm going to use that just to do the outline of the shoulder pad. Also going to use it to do the little skull and crossbones on his chest. Now we're moving on to Citadel Averland Sunset, which I haven't shown here. Now if you can see the lines where there's quite clearly scrape marks where it scraped off some of the mould lines, you want to be trying to cover them with this layer. Now the reason there's a few little mould lines on this is because, well, they have mould lines in the most irritating places. They tend to be anyway, if you ask me, sort of like down the centre of shoulder pads and that kind of thing. But also I do spray the kind of base stroke undercoat colour while they're on the sprue, so then when I've clipped them out I have to repaint those bits. Next up we're going to be using Citadel Yriel Yellow. I'm going to be painting up most of the armour with this. I'd probably say about 3/4 of the armour, maybe more. So as you're looking at the model from above, you want to be completely covering all the areas that you can see, and then working out where we'll be catching the most light and painting it with that as well. You do want to leave some of the Averland Sunset showing on like the underside of the arms and the legs and that shoulder pad, his right shoulder pad. So the yellow one, you do want to be leaving some of the Averland Sunset on that as well. So looking at the miniature now, you can see the areas that I've painted with Yriel yellow. At the underside of his leg there is still Averland Sunset. The bottom half of the shoulder pad and the, say about the bottom third of his arms and legs are Yriel yellow, and then we've left the Averland Sunset on all those parts. So next we're moving on to Citadel Flash Gitz Yellow, which is a lot brighter than the previous colour. You're going to be doing maybe the top half of all the Yriel yellow areas. So giving them a nice coat of that so that it's nice and smooth, also nice and bright. I can see where we've put the Flash Gitz Yellow now, highlighting that so you can see the Flash Gitz Yellow, the Yriel Yellow, and also the Averland Sunset, and how they've all come together on that. And now we're just going to mix a little bit of Vallejo White to create a highlight, and then we're going to do all the edges which will catch the light. That's almost like a normal edge highlight, only you're only doing the bits that will catch the light, you're not doing every single edge. I should say, I don't do every single edge, you can paint them how you want, they are your miniatures. But I don't particularly like that way, so I only paint the edges that I think would catch the light. So now with all those done, we're just going to use a little bit of Vallejo White. We're going to start on the shoulder pad again. So just going to be edging that into where the Seraphim Sepia is and making sure there's a little bit of sepia left between the white and the yellow. And smoothing off any areas which may not be 100% smooth of the white there. Like so. The next colour that we're using is Vallejo German Grey. I'm going to be using that to do all the ribbing on his armour, like the black panels in between the armour, and also to highlight the bolt pistol and the bolt gun. Now after this layer you can do some extreme highlights using a little bit of Mechanicus Standard Grey if you wanted to. I don't on this model because they're meant to be a bit more sneaky, so I didn't do that grey highlight, which in the grand scheme of things when they're wearing bright yellow armour wouldn't really matter too much, but I wanted to keep them quite dulled down. But you can do that highlight there if you want to. Next up we're going to be using Citadel Mournfang Brown and start working on the pouches, on the strap to his bolt gun. So colouring in these areas once again, but making sure that we leave the Agrax Earthshade in any of the ridges and the edges, just to give them that darker area. Just finish that and then come back onto the next layer. Now I'll add a little bit of Citadel Rakarth flesh to the Mournfang Brown. Now we're going to start highlighting the edges of all the pouches and the areas where it's likely to have been scuffed and chafed. Now we're going to add a little bit more Rakarth flesh to that mix. We're just going to do one final highlight on the straps and on the pouches. It's just doing a little quick method of making it look like the pouches are now scuffed. Like so. Now you can see on the shoulder pad there, I've drawn on the checks and also the circle in the middle so that we can paint on the Lamenters chapter symbol. And all we're going to be using for this is Vallejo Black. Now as always, when you're painting on these checks, I always find that every single time I do it, the check's always ever so slightly different. As well as that, you'll find that you always make mistakes in different places too, so if you come to finishing the black off, you're going to have to go back over it with some white just to smooth up those squares and get it all looking nice. If you do make any mistakes on it, just crack on, paint it again, that'll be fine. I'm using Vallejo White here just to do that and tidy up the edges of some of those squares. You can see with the black squares overlap there where I've actually done the squares slightly wrong size, so I will oversize them and then touch them up with the white to make them the right shape. And again, if you're doing the white and you make some mistakes and go over some of the black you shouldn't have, you can always just get a little bit more black and touch that up. Now we're going to come back and use Citadel Mephiston Red. That's just going to be to paint a heart on the shoulder pad. Now ordinarily it would be also to paint the eye lenses and start doing them as well, but I did the eye lenses for another video which I'll link just above. So that if you want to do the eye lenses in the same way, you can do them. It's a very quick and easy method of doing eye lenses. Just painted in that knee pad red as well, for his company colour. Next up, we're going to use a little bit of Vallejo White. We're going to add that to the red, just so that we can do the lenses on his guns. I'm just going to use a little bit more Vallejo White mixed in with that to do a little edge crescent on the bottom left hand edge of that. Now just using a little bit more Vallejo White in that previous mix to do one final little pink highlight on the very edge of the lens there. And then we're just going to use a tiny little bit of pure Vallejo White to put a spot in the top right corner of each lens, and also a little white crescent on the bottom left. Now we're going to be using Vallejo White once more. We're going to be putting the arrowhead onto his right shoulder pad. What I'll do is I'll draw a line arrow on the shoulder pad like that, then join up the two triangles straight across the main body of the arrow, and just simply draw a line at each side of the vertical and fill that area in with white. It's a quick and easy way of doing the arrowhead. Now we're just going to use a little bit of Vallejo Black, and that is going to be to put the squad markings on. So you'll notice I rotate the miniature so that I'm always painting vertically in one smooth vertical motion. And that is the Lamenters Infiltrator finished. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media linked below. Thanks very much.